I crept on nimble paws, trying not to make any noise. As I made my way through the darkened forest, there was a small break in the clouds, revealing the moon. It cast a soft silver glow over the trees and made the droplets on my whiskers glisten like little stars. Pretty. I loved silver, though darkness was my color preference. I was so entranced by the scenery that I didn't notice where I was scurrying. And then the sudden sound of a twig snapping startled me into stillness. Shit. So much for stealth. I turned and peered with my beady eyes into the darkness, checking to make sure I was alone. I wasn't the only creature that liked to hunt at night, and therefore I had to be cautious. I didn't want to end up in the belly of some predator or be caught stealing from their stash. Normally, I'd be in the shadows. It was far less risky. But tonight it was drizzling, and the ground was slippery. The mud treacherous. It was a hazard for a rat like me. Though if I were to slip, I could recover quickly. But if anyone were to witness it, that'd be the end of me. Satisfied with my findings or lack thereof, I turned back around and continued on my way, following the silver trail that would lead me to my prize. I was close. I could sense the vibrations of my target as it scurried with each step that I took along the forest floor. All my senses were attuned, creating a symphony only I could hear. I twitched my whiskers in anticipation. The struggle my prey was giving indicated it was going to be a big, satisfying catch. My stomach growled at me to hurry and sink my teeth into it. Just a few more strides, I told it, though there was no reasoning with my hunger pains. They protested relentlessly. It had been almost a week since I last fed, and there was nothing I could do about it. I had to wait until my trap was sprung. But at least I was patient. I had to be. It wasn't like I was a pampered pet that people willingly provided for. Adorable little things. They were spoiled rotten, always showered with treats and cuddles. Because of my appearance, I was often mistaken for a dirty scavenger. Sometimes I wish I was one. But if someone took a closer look, they'd see the intelligence gleaming in my eyes. My sleek fur camouflaged for survival. My agile body built for agility and speed. However, these attributes didn't grant me any advantage. To reveal my true capabilities would only invite danger, as my kind was considered a pest and relentlessly pursued. The irony was that everyone thought we were abundant. There hadn't been a sighting of us in years. That was another talent we possessed. The ability to hide in plain sight. It was why we shared similarities with other rodents so we could blend in seamlessly. It was a skill we had honed over generations, allowing us to survive. But we were still a diminishing species. And staying alive meant I had to be extra cautious. A faint squeak caught my attention, and my mouth watered as I imagined sinking my teeth into my fresh meal. I was sorely tempted to pounce, but I resisted the urge and instead scouted the area to ensure I was alone, seeking solitude to enjoy my feast undisturbed. I grimaced at the thought of it. If there was one thing I despised about having to hide, it was being forced to devour my meal in the open like a desperate scavenger. I couldn't remember a time when I ever got to savor my food in peace and safety. Even as a pup, my parents would lead us through a maze of tunnels to a hidden alcove, then deliver us our meager rations right there. I pushed away the memory with a low squeak, cursing the fickle nature of fate. Stay calm, Rathius. Suppress your temper, echoed the voice of my father in my mind. And I took a calming breath. The resentment receded, though not entirely, and I knew it would become a significant issue if I didn't feed soon. I circled the perimeter of my hunting ground several times before deciding it was clear to proceed. Never safe. I would never use that word, as safety was a luxury unknown to creatures like me, especially if someone were to discover how I secured my sustenance. I brought my agile paws in front of me, pushing aside the damp foliage as I made my way to the hidden nook. I tried to ignore the thinness of my body as I caught glimpses of it. The famine had taken its toll, causing me to appear less robust than I actually was. It was disheartening. I was so thin. I might as well be a wisp of air. I moved closer to my trap, disregarding my bony frame whenever it came into view. Another squeak resounded, a plea for freedom, as if it knew the predator that had ensnared it was nearby. With a few more steps, I reached the small clearing. My eyes locked on my prey, and I was not disappointed. Caught in the trap was a plump, juicy rat the size of a small squirrel. My whiskers twitched with excitement, and my stomach tightened in anticipation of the feast before me. The captured rat froze as it spotted me, then began struggling frantically to escape. Its efforts were in vain. Nothing could break the grip of my snare, except perhaps my sharp incisors. Rat. The word echoed in my mind like a cautionary tale. Even I had been conditioned to view my species as pests. When subjected to a particular narrative for so long, one tends to accept it as truth. The scent of succulent meat reached my nostrils, and my thoughts faded, overtaken by primal desires. I was so ravenous, my hunger overriding all else. And finally, I leaped onto the creature, sinking my teeth into its neck to silence its pleas and indulge in its life force. The forest echoed with the sounds of my satisfaction. The world was full of rats, so there was no guilt in what I was about to do. Yet a slight pang of remorse pricked at my conscience. It wriggled beneath me, but only briefly before going limp as my hunger was satisfied. It wasn't dead. Not yet. But soon. It would be. My venom, the paralyzing toxins that coursed through my fangs, was the reason I couldn't pass for a harmless rodent. It was released when I fed. It was also the reason why my kind was seen as more dangerous than ravenous beasts. How ironic. I didn't understand why. The effects wore off after a short while. But I suppose being rendered defenseless for even that brief period was a vulnerability that others couldn't overlook. In this perilous world, a single mistake could lead to my demise or the loss of my dominion. Both outcomes too dire to risk. My eyes closed in satisfaction as the warm liquid coated my tongue. Just like a predator, fresh blood was the only sustenance I could ingest. Fur tickled my whiskers and filled my mouth. But my primal needs were unaffected. My hunger consumed all else. And for a fleeting moment, I allowed myself to fantasize about drinking.